Now, here's something that I definitely didn't expect to be saying just a couple of weeks ago. And is Sir Ed Davey about to become the leader of the opposition? Well, in the last few weeks, Sir Ed seemed to be on one long adventure holiday around the UK. He started off by paddleboarding, way man overboard, where he ended up, as you can see there, in Lake Windermere. And the next day, he got on his bike in Wales, as you can see there too. And luckily this time, he kept his balance. Now, the Liberal Democrat leader got wet again when he threw himself down a water slide. What a donut, as you can see. Now, it's really been getting stuck into all of these challenges, and last week he took on an assault course, as you can see, not particularly convincing. And there he is, getting his leg over. Now he's going under Sir Ed Davey. Oh, he's a game fella. You've got to give him that. And Sir Ed couldn't resist a trip to a theme park after the Liberal Democrat manifesto was launched. As you can see, all aboard. And of course, he went on one of these stomach-churning rides there, spinning around in the air. It's one long adventure for Ed Davey. Stomach-churning stuff in every respect. And there he is, Sir Ed Davey, last week, and took part in a wheelbarrow race, and he won it. I don't think his opponents trying very hard. They might have let him there, but you've got to admit the Liberal Democrats have come up with some pretty creative ideas over the last few weeks, and they've certainly got us talking. Yesterday, he got up to a rather more sedate pastime of building sandcastles, making politics look like child's play, or maybe he's just getting a bit tired. And of course, you can forget his summer makeover. You can't forget it. Live on television on ITV this morning that made him look a little bit like Hannibal Lecter. Well, join me now to discuss the Lib Dems' chances of beating the Tories in the general election is the former Liberal Democrat Minister, Norman Baker. Norman, welcome to the show. So we're having a laugh about this, Norman, but the fact of the matter is we're talking about Ed Davey. We're talking about the Liberal Democrats. They're focusing on sewage. They're passionately manifesting on that, on the seats they know they can win. And Ed Davey is showing he's got a lighter side. They've surprised everybody. Now, Norman, this might not have been the kind of election campaign that you may have thought, but they've come from nowhere, and now it looks like they could be credible opposition. How did this happen?
Well, I wouldn't have been on that stomach-churning ride at Thorpe Park. I can tell you that for nothing, Martin. But and I'm also worried about Ed falling into Windermere, given the amount of sewage which the Tory party's allowed the water companies to dump. However, he's suggested he's been able to capture the news. He's showed he's an individual. He's showed he's got a lighter side, as you said. And when you've got some dull politicians around like Keir Starmer, that's quite a nice contrast. Look, this election is very well poised for the Lib Dems. It's a perfect scenario for us. You've got the Tories deeply unpopular. That's one thing. You've got ourselves quite well organised and a good array of policies. And you've got the Labour Party, who are dull, uninspiring, but also regarded as relatively safe. I mean, people cannot be frightened by the Tories into voting for the Tories because of Jeremy Corbyn, because he's no longer there. Keir Starmer looks relatively harmless. And that's a nice combination of circumstances for the Lib Dems. And the Tories are in deep trouble, as we know. And there's a strong possibility that we will end up with Lib Dems a second party in Parliament. At least a 50-50 chance, I would say.
And Norman, what's been very noticeable, I believe, I've fought against Liberal Democrats in by-elections. They fight formidable by-elections. This seems to me to have been a very targeted campaign, going to areas where you know you're playing to an appreciative audience. You're going for areas where you know you can win, and you're fighting on the issues that they care about with a bit of fun on top. Rather than trying to fight everywhere and waste resource and lose, you're zoning in. Is that what's been emerging here, a zoned-in, targeted campaign where you know you're going to be well liked with a bit of fun on top? Seems to be landing.
I think that's exactly right, Martin. It's been disciplined. We're not talking about a whole range of different issues. We're concentrating on the issues we think are most important to the public, the state of the economy, the public services which have gone down the pan, especially the NHS, and the destruction and damage to the environment from sewage and the water companies. I mean, they are issues I think everybody cares about, and we've been very clear on that. We've also had a good campaign in terms of recommending changes to carers, for example, to make sure that they're recognised properly in our society. And as you say, we put a bit of fun on top, which has garnered some media interest, but also just shows that we're all human. and not just kind of two-dimensional, cut-out cardboard politicians. So we've gone up in the opinion polls during the campaign. Ed's ratings personally have gone up in the campaign, and I think we're very well poised to do quite well. It's very clear that in the blue wall, in particular in the south, in places like Sussex, where I am, in Lewis, and in Surrey, in Jeremy Hunt's constituency, for example, we're now polling very strongly indeed. And given the nature of the Conservative vote, we're looking to pick up seats there. You know, plenty of Tory voters who would be frightened into voting Lib Dem or Labour because of Jeremy Corbyn last time round aren't frightened to voting Lib Dem this time round because we're seen as a sensible party, we're seeing lots of good ideas, and they're not particularly worried about Keir Starmer being in number 10.
And Norman, the big question is, we saw there trampolining, go-karting. How do you top it? What's next? Where will this end? Can we expect to see, I don't know, Ed Davey in a tutu on a trapeze? Can we expect to see him exiting as a human cannonball in a puff of glitter, blasting into the House of the Parliament? Will this continue? Or are we going to see actually some more serious and robust policies? Or is it all just one big lark?
Well, we've had a lot of robust policies, to be fair, and what Ed has done, I think, quite sensibly, is to draw attention to himself and then use the media coverage he's got to talk about serious issues like how we look after carers properly. So that's been part of the strategy. I hope he's now going to move on to more to-date activities. I saw he was building a sandcastle there. That's more my style, it has to be said. We'll perhaps see more of that in the next couple of weeks.
Well, Norman Baker, as you can see there, he's looking like the world's worst gladiator. I think he's about to go overboard again, is he? He does go overboard. I think I've seen this clip before. He does leap to some monkey bars, and he has to be said, a pretty feeble gladiator. I wonder what his gladiator name would be. But look, Norman Baker, we're talking about the campaign trail, and I think you're right. You know, it's a dour time. It's been a bit lacklustre. There's been a bit of fun injected from Lib Dems' Ed Davey. Norman Baker, thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure to have your company.